Fishermen, let's expand our fishing knowledge and talk bluefin tuna.
We're showing up today for the 2025 Pacific Coast Sportfishing Show. We've got a tremendous amount of great vendors here today. Up on stage today from Bite Sport Fishing, we've got Brandon Hayward, and we're going to talk to him and his crew and his son Noah here. Jake was here with me yesterday doing swordfish seminars, and I got to tell you, the amount of knowledge coming out of these guys is incredible. So I've got to pay the sponsors real quick, and then we're going to get into talking about fishing bluefin tactics here in Southern California. So guys, real quick, by raise of hands, how many of you guys are members of CCA? Awesome, because I go through this every time, so we just got to get you guys a little bit of knowledge on this. By raise of hands, how many of you guys have heard of CCA? Yeah. And how many of you have no idea what CCA is? All right, just a few of you. So, Coastal Conservation Association of California. We might be kind of new to you, but we're not new nationally. So CCA is a national organization protecting your rights to fish, working for the sport fishing industry, and making sure that you guys will have a fishery for your grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren. So by raising your hands, how many of you guys bought a fishing license last year? How many of you guys got it in your stocking because you have to have it in January for January? None of you, because CCA went and fought for you guys to be able to buy a license in May and have it good until May, instead of buying it in January and having it good until January. That wasn't flying for anybody, and it brought up the amount of license sold tenfold. So it gave more financial stability to the state and the resources. So we also have some different opportunities for you guys to get into CCA. If you're not a member in the Costa Mesa booth, you guys go become a member. How many of you guys fish avidly? How many of you guys believe that you got to be a little bit lucky? How many of you guys believe in karma? All right, if you don't go and join CCA, that's bad karma, guys. I sit in board meetings for hours for you, for free. I sit on Zoom meetings for hours for you, for free. We fight for your right to sport fish and block MPAs and 30-30. Who knows what 30-30 is? Not very many of you, so let me enlighten you a little bit. Governor Newsom signed an executive order that in 2030, 30% of our fishing grounds will be closed. And you guys don't even know about it because you haven't informed yourself and joined groups like CCA that can legislatively fight for you. So make sure that you guys join. Become a life member. Go drop $1,000 and make my day. Your karma will be through the roof. All right? So guys, you look over here at this banner real quick here. You guys can see it. There's a QR code, both sides. If you scan that QR code, guys, you can find out everything you need to know about CCA, but you can also enter the Star Tournament. You guys probably haven't even heard of Star Tournament. So last year, Star Tournament won this Parker. Actually, it was a different color hole. This year, we've got a stealth gray. Brandon, how many Parkers have you owned? Too many. Because of Brandon Hayward, Parker is the most popular boat in California. We're giving one away. Here's how it was won last year. The guys that fish in the Star Tournament they'll get a measuring stick. It's a really nice little laminated measuring stick out of vinyl. You take your fish, you lay it out there, take a picture, you turn in your entry fee. That turns into basically like a ticket. That goes into the basket. Your ticket gets drawn. The guy that won the boat last year, 2 entries. So you don't have to catch a 300-pound bluefin. You don't have to catch 200 yellowtail. You don't have to catch 50 Dorado. You just have to enter the tournament to win. Second place, 5 entries. So, yeah, there were guys that had 50 entries. They didn't win. So it's a game for everybody. Not to mention the scholarship programs that we're putting together through Star Tournament. So, guys, make sure that you do your part. It's good karma. Get involved. You want to get some more good karma? Go over here to War Heroes on the Water and go donate over here. Spend $10 and put a ticket in each jar. Look at the prizes over there. For $70, they'll put a ticket in every jar for you. Help our veterans enjoy the rest of their lives. They've dedicated their lives to us. Get over there and donate to War Heroes on the Water. So guys, let me, real quick, hand me it's going to say Brandon's, it's the next one over. Yep, right there under my phone. Perfect. That's how long I was standing on the side of the stage. So guys, we're going to talk today about this local Bluefin Tactics. These guys are going to give you some great advice. You can video it with your phone. You can stay afterwards and talk to them. This will take a little over an hour or 45 minutes to give or take how many questions. But we have a guest star with us today, all right? So this is Noah Hayward, guys. And I just got done telling Noah when I started. He's 12 years old, all right? And I'll guarantee you he probably has more fish in his blood than most of us here today, okay? I started my career when I was 12 and a half years old. You see, back when I was a kid, and when a lot of you were kids, when we were 12 and 13 years old, our parents told us, if you want it, you go earn it. And it wasn't all sorts of laws that prevented us from mowing the neighbor's lawn, washing a car, delivering papers, or getting a job on a fishing boat. My first job was on the Cy Polaris in 1978 for Oscar Simon, who Chuck Kimnitz knew very well, who's sitting here in the audience with us. And that was my life up until today. That's all I've ever known is the fishing industry. It's been very great to me, and it's a pleasure to have Noah up here with us today. This is his dad, Brandon Hayward. He owns the Bite Sportfishing. And how many of you guys heard of Bite magazine? That is a glossy, quality magazine. It's probably the best magazine, and the reason why there's so much quality into it is the time it takes to produce this magazine, edit this magazine. It's not a monthly magazine, correct? This is more like a quarterly magazine, correct? Yearly, depending on the year. So this is something that sits on the coffee table and everybody wants to read. Very glossy. Jay Crenshaw is one of his crew members, and yesterday some of the things that he talked about in their sword fishing seminar really made me appreciate how analytical he is in his fishery. Because some of the guys just go out there and do it for the glory. Some guys go out there and do it for the money. Some guys are very analytical and do it because they're passionate and they really enjoy what they're doing out there. I was really, really stoked with that seminar yesterday. So guys, let's go ahead and get started here. So we're going to talk today about fishing bluefin tuna. I'm going to take a seat here for a second. By the way, the reason why they hired me to do this is because I'm shy. I don't like to talk. I'm very quiet. You can't hear me. I just let these guys take over. You know, I wish that were the case. So, Brandon, you've got probably one of the most respected charter boat companies in Southern California. Your name, your brand, really, I mean, I miss Kevin Kelly. You really changed the way that we look at the charter boat industry. I mean, it went from very little private boats on the water in the 80s and the 70s to a little bit showing up, and then the six-pack industry started. A lot of people were still doing corporate charter boats and spending a lot of time on open party boats and sport boats. And then a little over about 15 years ago, I'd say maybe 20 years ago, you started showing up on the scene a little bit like a church mouse, but then all of a sudden it was all Brandon Hayward, and it didn't matter if it was lobster fishing, if it was offshore tuna fishing, if it was trophy bluefin tuna fishing. But what he did was he changed the platform and made it very popular for people to just be able to charter a boat with 2 or 4 guys, get out faster, get out further, and not break the bank so much. Well, if you go with Brandon, by the way, you probably want to be ready because you pay for what you get. And that's in a lot of things. You know, people ask, God, why do you charge $150 an hour? It only took you 15 minutes to fix it. Well, I've been doing it for 45 years. You can have the guy that started yesterday and get it done for $25. You won't do it right. You pay for what you get for. So,
what I say, good afternoon. When people come fishing with us, you're not really just paying for the fishing trip that day. So if you're going to go fish for coastal sea bass with us in May, or you're going to go for bluefin, you're kind of paying for the 7 or 8 years that I dedicated my life to that fish and slept on a cold deck and worked 130 hours a week. And when I didn't have a charter and Noah was 1 year old, I'd drive around and look for squid off Huntington Beach and get after it. So the bluefin thing, there's a lot of masters of that craft. There's a lot of people who are really, really good at it. I feel like everyone's kind of cracked the code, do a lot of tools that are out there and such, and there's still a lot of fine details in it. But I feel that of all the bite fisheries, that's the one that people have a big grasp on. And I also never thought, when I started the business, there was no local tuna. It didn't exist. So I never thought in a million years we'd have a fishery that was based around bluefin tuna, and people would say they're only 150 pounds. I don't want to go. It's just the way the landscape has shifted is incredible. So yeah, what we do is we offer small, fast charter boats for people who want to come out and get a multi-day fishing experience in one day. And whereas there's no one else in the landscape who can do it for sea bass in the spring and stuff, there's a lot of great operations that do it for the tunas for sure.
So, no, I'm going to put you on the spot here, all right? Because you've been watching your dad get ready every year for certain types of fisheries, whether it be sea bass, lobster, bluefin tuna. What time of year do you think your dad starts looking and preparing his clients to go hunt for bluefin tuna in Southern California?
Well, the summer is a good time because he told me, and he's not like around very much. But I'm very happy that he's around more now because he has Jake here. He works now.
Good job. He nailed it. So, Brandon, when are you guys really gearing up? When are you guys switching from lobster and sea bass fishing, which iconically, between you, Alan Watson, and a few others, I don't think there's ever been anybody better. Daryl Beard and a couple other guys, they're very iconic, sea bass fishermen. I envy you in your ability to make it through that type of an industry because it takes so much patience and really studying conditions. Because how many of you guys sea bass fish? It's not for everybody. And the way that Brandon has done it is amazing. So when is it that you start switching the gears and start telling the guys, hey, it's time?
Yeah. Everything we do is kind of in accordance with the fish and Mother Nature because you never know. And so a lot of times the last couple of years it's May, but the thing with bluefin, and I've really thought on this a lot, the interest is still there for that fish. Obviously you guys are here, but also people have lost that love and feeling a little bit and they want to try for sea bass and yellows more, and people who started fishing in 2014 in this kind of like gold rush of fishing want to try different stuff. So we usually start bluefin around May, whenever they come within 80 miles of San Diego. We run Go Fast Freeman, which allows you to we go to the Cortez Bank on a one-day trip, which I never thought would happen, a lot of it. So yeah, when that stuff shows up, we dedicate one of the 3 boats. We always keep 3 boats in our fleet. One of the 3 boats will focus on the tuna. There's a lot of pressure on that fish, get the Polaris Supreme and the Queen and the guys that do those 3-day, 2-day type stuff. They start fishing that stuff in April and it goes into November now. So it just depends. Last year it took a much different trajectory way out west. Much different trajectory versus the 4 or 5 miles off the beach. But to Todd's question, when it starts showing up, we dedicate a boat to it, and it seems like May.
Yeah, I know that some of the guys are already thinking about that stuff that's 100 plus miles below the border and trying to get down to that stuff. But that's a long run and it takes some dedication. But we're already seeing some signs of this fish here. With that being in close proximity based on the vast amount of space here, in the Pacific Ocean. The stuff is really, it's already close to our backyard. So, Jake, what kind of conditions are you looking for, early season on the water? Water temperature, color, baits, birds, surface action, and are you ever looking for mammals? And that, a lot of people, when they think of tuna, they just think of dolphins. But I also, I put whales into the situation a lot. I'd rather see sometimes whales in an area that are deep dive, feeding than a bunch of dolphins if I'm fishing bluefin. But and a lot of other species. Dolphins obviously carry fish, but is there anything in specific condition-wise that you're looking for in the beginning of the season to get you located?
Life is kind of a big part of it early season. A lot of times, the early season, that stuff is pretty difficult. It's probably the most difficult part of the year to fish them in. Like that when it first shows up in the spring, that stuff just moves around a lot. So life is kind of a big part of it. That fish will make big jumps overnight a lot of times. It could be 20, 30, 40-mile moves sometimes from where it was the day before. It's really spread out. It's not so balled up like it is in the back half or late part of the season. So early part of the season, you're kind of just trying to cover ground, basically. That's when your like yummy flyers and a lot of the like the fast moving baits come in. Just something that you can cover ground and just mostly just look for life, like whales, like Todd said. We've caught a lot of fish on whales. You notice that kind of early part of the season when they're foaming around. Once they move up and they kind of get outside San Diego and all that, when they get a little more comfortable and they get on the bait, and that's when you get those big foam shows and stuff. You'll see it kind of correlates a lot with whales and all the other mammals and stuff. But mostly early season, as far as early season stuff goes, whales and birds are probably going to be your biggest thing. Watercolor, they can kind of get in any really watercolor you want. A lot of times you see them in the dirtier side of it. If you look on whatever break you're looking at, if you're looking at a terrafin chart or some sort of satellite imagery where you're looking at the water chart, a lot of times they're on the colder side. Springtime, they could be in the warmer side, but you kind of notice a lot more times that they're going to be in the greener edge of things more than the bluer water. But it just depends. You just kind of got to cover ground for the first part of the year.
So, Noah, I got a good question for you. I saw a picture of you. I wanted to get it up on the screen here, but we couldn't edit everything that was on here today. But you were laying in a pile of bluefin, so you've obviously caught your fair share. What's your favorite go-to rod and reel for fishing bluefin?
I don't do the shopping for tackle, so I'm probably not the best person to ask, but the big one.
So that you gotta love the honesty. I'm not the one that gets to shop for the tackle, so the big one.
The big one. Most of the fishing that we do is on the kite. There's so many different styles to bluefin, every year there's been something different. The first year, double trouble mackerel or slow troll mackerel, and it's moved and progressed and everything. Spreader bars work, all sorts of different things. At the end of the day, the style that we do, because it seems to resonate the most with the customers, is the kite. And so with the kite, your line's going up to the kite. I'm sure we'll discuss that at depth, but you have a lot of line out already. So the smallest reel we use is a 50 size reel. It could be your favorite manufacturer, any 50 size 2-speed reel, 130 pound braid and a long leader, big hooks on your flyer, because kite fishing is one of those things, all your business is out of the water. So you can kind of fish as heavy as you want. The big thing with the kite fishing, and we'll talk about it more later, but that's kind of the crux of it. A 50 size reel, a 7-foot rod, 7.5-foot rail rod, and kind of that classic long-range gear like you'd use on a 15-day or something is our go-to.
Do you guys tend to, and Jake, you can answer this, do you guys tend to use solid or hollow braid more than one or the other? And is there any difference or preference?
There's not too much difference. It's kind of preference, really. The one thing that's different with it, solid's kind of your easiest bet. It's because you can splice in a new wind on real quick if you need to. You just tie a bimini and slap a new wind on if you need to. Say if you broke off for something weird. Hollow, I like hollow a lot. It just feels smoother and everything. But then again, a lot of times it's hard if you want to. In like any emergency situation, say you break off or something weird, you can't really just like fix your stuff there. It's more of like a do it at home or a tackle shop type deal. Easiest route though is going to be like 130 pound solid Spectra is going to be the easiest way.
And Brandon, so I mean, you're talking about the kite being probably lately the most productive and maybe even the most preferred technique. Are you guys fishing mostly, fresh dead flyers, frozen flyers that you're purchasing or catching and then rigging?
Yeah, we use mostly dead, the G-fly, the frozen ones. We have those buckets on the boat to put live ones on there, and there's times when the fish are kind of heavily pressured that we'll use the live ones, or if we're doing a 2-day to the island, we'll definitely do live ones. But for the kite and kind of skipping the bait around, it's not so much about the bait. How do I want to word this? There's times where perfection in rigging matters, and that certainly matters with the kite and the flyer. However, it's the presentation that matters. Getting in front of the breezer, getting in front of the flat spot, visually locating the fish, which is the key to it. and then figuring out where the wind is and how the boat's upswell and just plopping your bait in there. And 9 times out of 10, I mean, your bait touches the water if you put it presently and you're just bit. Like sometimes you're bit before the whole bait even hits the water. So you know, the fresh dead ones look beautiful and they're really appealing looking, but we've caught them on 4-day-old rough looking baits, you know. But yeah, flying fish is the crux of it.
And Jake, talk a little bit about leader size and length on that. We know that because the everything's out of the water. Is it as heavy as you can go, or is there any reason to go lighter, and how long?
I like as heavy as you can go. I fish 400 pound, just a normal standard wind on length, like a 25-foot section of it. I connect mine down to a pigtail swivel, and I have all my hook leaders pre-made. All my hook leaders are nice and short. The reason I do that is they're like about a foot and a half to the swivel. That way you can just wind all the way to the tip when you have a fish on, and you can reach it with the gaff. You know, some guys like to have a big long leader going up to their swivel or whatever, and then the fish gets next to the boat, and guys wind the swivel to the tip of the rod, can't wind it anymore, and then they're looking at the fish like 6 feet down, and they can't reach it with the gaff. So I keep my leaders really short. My wind on's pretty standard, about a 25-foot long. I fish 400 pound all the way across the board, all the lines out of the water, so I'd rather fish as heavy as I can get away with. Some guys will fish 130 or something if there's less wind. They feel like it flies better or something. There's a case for that too, but I kind of just fish 400 all the way across the board. And it's all the way out of the water, so it doesn't really matter.
And Noah, have you noticed what style hooks that your dad's using when you're fishing the California flying fish, or using a flying fish, a fresh flying fish? Yeah.
In the front of the flyer by the wings, we prefer a J hook, and then in the back a treble.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's kind of the standard protocol, I think. So, is there any technique specifically that gives you that better presentation when rigging your flying fish and getting the wings right? Are you going full extension? Are you kind of going V form, or is there anything different that you want to talk about, or do you share?
I think Jake and I can both answer this one.
Yep.
Everyone does things different. So I just put them straight out. I just put the skewer through there and I just bat wing them so that maximum wing out presentation. It's always worked for me. I've done that since day one and it works. Jake does it both ways. I'll let him answer it. But I put the wings straight out and I just impale the hook in the hardest part of the, through the gills. And then I zip tie the back hook. If I'm giving it time and want it perfect, I'll zip tie the back treble flat, like how we used to for the Yummy Flyer. The thing that will mess you up, and this is pretty huge if you're taking notes, a lot of times when your bait's out and they blow up and they miss it, and it's kind of that deep roll, I don't know because I haven't talked to the tuna, but my thing is that when they deep roll on it and they miss the bait, it's not that they're missing it, because if they want it, they're just going to commit. They just detonate on it, right? It's because something happened on their approach that they didn't like danger, danger. And that danger is like the hook going in the water, the wing going to the side, something like that. So when you're getting those deep rolls and they're kind of flaring off your bait, it's because something's not totally right in your presentation. When they're just foaming and going crazy and you just got to get it out from here to the canopy right here, I just take that back treble and just put it right in the meat, the bottom barb in, and the other two prongs sticking up. It doesn't totally matter. It's not total science there, but that's what I do on the wings.
Jake, you want to add to that?
I do things a little bit differently. That's what's cool about it. You just kind of find what works for you, try different stuff. If it doesn't work, then just adapt. If you notice something's not working for you, keep pulling hooks on something, or something's off, change it. Don't keep doing what's not working. So what I found that works for me is the way I was taught how to do it. Back in 2017, whenever we first kind of started doing this with the dead flyer, I put the wings at like a 45-degree angle. I don't think wing matters too much if you do it all the way open or closed, whatever. I do mine a little bit thinner. It's like a 45-degree out from the body. And I just fish a single J hook. I personally absolutely hate treble hooks for that size fish.
I feel like
we debate this all the time. I love it. I hate it. So I fish mine with a single J hook, big giant 12-aught. I hook it like a swim bait though, kinda like a saltwater swim bait. I hook it from right behind the skewer, right where your skewer goes across the flyer. I hook it right underneath that, popping out up the top of the middle of the bait. So your hook's kind of sitting almost centered right in the middle of your flyer. It makes your bait lay perfectly flat every time. I mean, there's no off balance. There's no hook hanging over the side of the back of the fish, like the trouble you get, like the little prongs hanging off. Just a lot more natural, a lot less hardware, and I feel like I miss a lot less fish on them, and you hook them on it, they're not coming off. You got a big giant 12-aught. It's either swallowed down their throat or it's right in the corner of the mouth. So that's what I do. Everybody does things differently. That's what works for me.
So Noah, you like fishing the balloon? The balloon, just plain balloon. Have you done that with your dad?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of times where the balloon has been very productive, especially with fish that are moving around, and you can, especially when you're in a large area where there's a lot of fish, a lot of moving around, rather than chasing. Sometimes you can observe, and then you can set up the boat so that you get fish coming into your pattern and getting bit. When do you see that balloon being used in situations, and is it rigged any differently than just the kite?
So the balloon's really just used when there's no wind. It's rigged the same as the kite, and it really helps when you're trying to sit still. Like you were saying, when they're trying to get on their trajectory.
Right. Yep.
It's like a pop quiz. It's like a 7th grade pop quiz and you don't know all the answers.
You're doing well.
He's doing good. So, like Noah said, exactly when there's not a lot of wind, the balloon comes into its own. And like what Todd said, the best is when you can just shut down and there's just enough wind for everything and you never have to move the boat and you're just, fish are coming through and all that other stuff. So the balloon we use when there's no wind, helium prices have just gone up crazy. And also for us, we're always in this kind of how do we conserve helium mode, because it's not so much the price of the helium and that balloons are $60, it's the turn and burn of filling the helium tanks when you're running a lot. So we use a little breakaway on it. So originally, or when I started working on boats long range, you'd put a big heavy duty balloon on there, tie a piece of Dacron and put your 36-inch balloon on there and fly it out. No one worried about helium costs or anything. But now we use a rod like what Noah's saying, a lot like the kite, that goes to the balloon. So when you get bit, it shoots down, the rubber band breaks off, your balloon goes free, and it's connected to another rod, and you can wind it in, and it's better for the environment. So that's the play on the balloon. The dream scenario of kite, flyer, bluefin fishing is you're somewhere and you shut down in an area that has mixed life and fish, and you just never have to leave. And you get a kite up and a balloon up, or you get 2 kites up or 2 off the same kite. That's a drift scenario. There's a lot of different styles to the bluefin. Like what Jake was saying, early season, big moves, jumps, search, hunting. In the fall, in a perfect world, settled in, Tanner Bank, 60-mile bank, Desperation, Cherry Bank now, like the places that we've caught them over the last 7 or 8 years with this fish. So when you're not moving the boat a ton and you're there and there's not a lot of wind, that's when you kind of pull the balloon. It's like all fishing. You have a tool bag and there's 6 or 7 tools in this tool bag. The big takeaway with fishing that I've found with myself, a trap that I fall into and I see with others, is that something works one time and then that becomes the hard rule. I always use a dropper loop for sea bass because I got a 50-pounder on it. I always use a jig and squid, but the fish could be up on the surface and you're going to miss them all. It's like a friend told me once, when your only tool is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? But for bluefin in all of our fisheries, there's 7 or 8 or 10 different tools, and you got to run diagnostics that day. Use recall from the past where you're going like, oh, I remember when it was like this, past seasons, past trips, whatever, and then pull out the right tool. But not pull that tool out just because you made a rule because you caught a fish doing that X number of years ago.
So, Jake, how about kite, balloon, and balloon? So, or kite and balloon. There is times where that is an option in the toolbox and possibility for multiple hookups too. When does that come into play? What kind of situations does that work out for you? And how difficult is it to manage that if you've got to maneuver and you've got to do things with the boat based on getting bites?
The kite's usually the easiest as far as maneuvering and that stuff goes, just gives you more flexibility. Balloons kind of just drift scenario, no wind scenario where you just shut down like we were talking about earlier. I know some guys, you'll see a lot of times, there's a few commercial guys I know that always just have a balloon set up ready. Even guys I know fish by themselves that way too, just because it's a little bit easier. But you can have a balloon set up and a kite, and you just have the balloon ready just for your secondary bite. So as soon as you hook one on a kite, you just ditch the balloon and just let it just do its thing. Doesn't require two people out. You just free spool your rod. You can put in a rod holder with the clicker on and free spool and just let it just kind of just slowly float out there as you're dealing with the kite fish and whatever. So there's always an advantage to having that second one ready if you have the balloons and the baits and all that stuff ready to go. I wouldn't do it if there was a lot of wind. If there's a scenario where there's just enough wind for the kite and the kite's working, but it's not like ripping or like crazy whitecaps or anything, that would be a scenario to use it. A lot of times when there's really heavy wind, the balloon doesn't really want to fish as well, and that's where the kite really excels. And it's also really easy to hook multiple fish on the kite that way, just because it can go out and in so fast. As soon as you wind in the kite, breaks away, you just slide another bait out. So when there's less wind and if there's enough just enough to get a kite up, that's definitely a scenario where I would want to have both ready to go.
So Noah, a few years ago, a couple artificial lures came out. One specifically kind of towered over the rest for a while, called the California Flyer. You've heard of it, correct? Have you seen any productivity with that? Have you caught one on the California Flyer? Do you like that lure? And how is that lure fished?
Well, the California Flyer, it's supposed to mimic an actual flying fish, but I think just a regular flyer is better because it can give off, even if it's out of the water, just the tail action, moving the tail just a little bit, it changes the game.
So do you guys use that California Flyer ever for just kind of prospecting and then switch over?
Yeah, I've become to love that lure, honestly. I use that more than a deadbait now. It's definitely situational. I really like fishing it. Early season I were talking about when the fish is very visual up on the surface, you get big breezers or foamers and stuff. I'll always pick that one over the deadbait, just because it gives you another shot a lot of times. You get on these big breezers and you just get the boat just set up how you want, and maybe you slide a deadbait into it and you have one just kind of half-heartedly eat it or something and just mess up your bait, and then you just got to wind it all in, put a new bait on it. By that time you got to reposition everything. A lot of times if you have that California Flyer on there, you can get it in on these big visual spots and you get an aggressive bite or one messes it up or whatever. You're still in the game because it's a piece of plastic, right? It's not going to mess up your dead bait, and you'll end up missing a few maybe or something. You get an aggression bite and you hook one out of it, versus where it could have been a spot that you might have just had a wreck bait out from a dead one. Then again, it's definitely situational. For the visual stuff, I like it. If we're in just a drift scenario where you're just boat shut down sitting there, I always prefer a dead bait for that.
And then how about rigging? Do you change the packaged rigging at all? Do you give it your own 2 cents? Do you convert it at all and change the package rigging and hook sets? Or do you just pull it out of the box until that's torn up and then replace it the way it was?
You can. I mean, you can fish it straight out of the box if you like the treble and stuff. For me, I don't. Hopefully Jazz isn't listening. But no, the first thing I do, I take that thing out of the package and cut that treble right off. Throw it right away. I just recrimp another big single J hook in the back. That takes place of the treble. I put it right there. Looks better to me too. You don't have any prongs hanging over the side, but I fish the 2 J's that way. I kind of modify it a little bit.
That's pretty great. I knew that was going to be your answer. That's why I had to question you, because they come with that treble hook on them. So, and guys, these things have been innovative. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And there's a couple different brands, but I think that California Flyer kind of just really stands out above the others. I know there's some really good, competitors to the California Flyer that you can purchase. So, I'm sure if you put enough effort into whatever you have in the right scenario, you're going to get bites. But guys, so I get these guys back going here. We're going to open up for questions here real quick. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
You guys use the backpack rig?
You guys use the backpack rig?
We do. I forgot to. Alex was supposed to be here. He's our new captain. And any of his buds are here, whatever. Sorry he's not here. We picked up a lobster charter for tonight. And the season's ending on the 19th. And as Todd is going to attest to, it's the fishing industry. You can't say no. You can't say no. So he's running the boat. He's doing good. And he's a huge addition to Bite with his long-range experience from running and owning the Royal Star to the Apollo. And we're stoked to have him. The backpack rig works good. So in case you don't know, the backpack rig is you use foam, like a water weenie, pool weenie thing on the top to float the thing out on the surface. That was kind of in vogue 6 or 7 years ago. Works great. We've used it for the run and gun fishing. It doesn't work. That's the tool to pull out in the drift scenario. Usually, if I know it's drift fishing and we're going to shut down on a fathom curve or a meter mark, and it's going to be a lot more of the boats getting shut down than it is running around, I'm more apt to bring the live flyers, the live ones. But the live flyers or the backpack is nice because you can get everyone. You can get 2 or 3 guys fishing upwind. All your business is upwind, upswell, and the kite is all downwind, downswell. And that's the ultimate when you can have 4 guys on the boat and everyone's actively fishing.
Everybody's fishing, absolutely. Yeah. Next question, yes.
So I had a hard time hearing, but I think it is what about dropping the flyers down deep? Yeah, I mean, if Alex was here, he would tell stories of fishing the pens and 24 guys all drop-shotting dead flying fish, right? That was the new thing for this year. So it works wonderfully. It works great. It works great because a lot of times they are deep, especially early season. Early season, the tool is nighttime deep jigging, daytime sinker rig or jigging, right? Stuff's deep. And then there's a turn, and the stuff comes up on the surface. So yeah, if the stuff's deep, that's a great way to go. Yeah.
Guys, by the way, I'm handing out shirts from Fishing Boats Unlimited. As we speak right now, I have about a, $20,000 job going on a boat where I've hired Fishing Boats Unlimited through Manson Marine to put in new Glendenning controls on a Michelson 43. And I've been doing business with them since I was in my 20s, and I don't own a Fishing Boats Unlimited shirt. Next question, yes.
You're doing the backpack or doing that kind of fishing, what leader weight do you?
So, reiterate it.
Am I hogging all the questions?
It's okay. Jake can answer.
So his question was, if you're using the backpack rig, what size leader do you use? So the bait's out of the water, and your line's kind of trailing down, right? And we just fish like a normal, like 130. If it was high sun and touchy fish, those moments from backside of Clemente a few years ago where it's just hot and glassy and you put the backpack out and drive away from it to get it away from the boat or whatever, 100 pound or something. I have rules. My rule for fishing is that I always think of the top end of the range of fish that we could possibly hook, right? So for local sea bass, that was like 70 plus pounders in the kelp. For swordfish, now that means 400 plus pound swordfish. And for bluefin, even though we don't catch 300 pounders like we were however many years ago, the top end of the range is if we hook a 300 pounder, is the gear capable of bringing this fish in? Also, from a charter perspective, it's not fair for one guy to be yanking on one while the school marches up swell and everyone else watches. So 100 pound is like our minimum, thank you, our bottom end of our range there.
Last question.
You do.
Repeat the question real quick for
So he was asking if we have different types of kites for different scenarios. Yes.
It's like a 90, so you
Depends
have to
on,
get him another one.
kind of just comes down to wind condition, basically. If we have really light wind, we fish a light wind kite, we just kind of match it. There's light wind kites, heavy wind kites, medium range. My favorite, overall, favorite 2 brands is going to be the California Flyer and the SFE. I feel like they're the strongest kites. It's really hard to break them versus other smaller ones like the Lewis stuff as far as the square kite goes. Light wind, we're fishing the light wind California Flyer SFE, the white one. Heavier wind, maybe got 10 plus knots or whatever. You could fish the medium one, the green one with the holes in it. I also try and get away with not having to use helium when possible. So I fish the Boston kite, the one that comes in a bag, a little black one. As soon as if there's any white caps at all, I fish that one the whole time.
Well, guys, Chuck, one last question. I'm out of shirts, but go ahead. Anything used out of the outriggers you ever use? Oh, downriggers.
You know, I haven't got into the downrigger game. I know it's strong. There's a thing there. There's guys that were slow trolling live flyers from outriggers a couple years ago, and that was working good. It's an exciting way. But no, we're just more apt to just rubber band a sinker on there and do it. But in your own private boat, when the stuff's deep, it would work great. A live flying fish on a downrigger would be wonderful.
All right, guys, how about we give these guys a big round of applause?
And I do want to add, a lot of people in this landscape do strictly charters, where you have to charter the whole boat. We do a raft of open party trips, 4 to 6 of them, and those are available. So if you can't put a group together and you want to come out and learn, you know, you can never guarantee the fishing, but there's nothing like a master's class for the day. Like when I wanted to learn about new fisheries or snook or how catamarans ride, I went to Louisiana and jumped on the boat. So my DNA is that I find the people who are like the alphas in what they do, and I go check them out, and I have no pride or ego with that, you know? So if you want to come out and do a trip, great. I'd even shave $100 off if you sign up at the show.
Awesome. There you go, guys. Go see him at where's your booth at?
We're in 128. We're right next to Accurate over here on this, whatever this corner building, the Los Alamitos, I believe.
There you go.
128, hit us up, get you out.
Awesome, guys. Thanks a lot for coming today, guys. Make sure that you guys go sign up for CCA. Go over here and buy some Heroes tickets, because if you don't, you won't catch anything on your next trip. It's bad karma.
Thank you very much for watching. We hope you found some golden nuggets of fishing skills hidden in there. Come and join us at a Marina Del Rey Anglers meeting. We help expand your fishing knowledge.